thing keeping you from real connection is the way you're trying to stay connected.
Because being always on doesn't mean we are truly connected.
Today's guest, Kelsey Green, strategist, speaker, and community builder, helps people reclaim focus and creativity through digital minimalism.
She's the creator of Summit in 6 and How to Build Your Circle.
Together, we're exploring how to reconnect to real life without disconnecting from the world.
Hi, I'm Claude.
And I'm Jess.
We are corporate employees by day, entrepreneurs by night, and work besties for life.
Join us as we explore how work besties lift each other up, laugh through the chaos, and thrive together in every industry.
Work besties! Welcome, Kelsey.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. We know you've spent a lot of time untangling people from digital overload. Let's start with you helping us understand what got you into this journey.
Absolutely. It followed a path, I think, that's similar to many of us here, right? Where I was working in high intensity roles, hit burnout, right? And I had sort of lost touch with what it meant to have any boundaries in my life in lots of ways, but certainly digital boundaries, right? So I was doing the constant scrolling because, of course, if you have to create content, if you are responding to clients, if you're building a business, it's very tempting. And sometimes you think you need to be on all the time. So I was responding to texts at all hours of the day and night. I had all the notifications, bing, 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 all the sounds on my phone, and do the multi-screen thing, like watching a Netflix show, answering emails, all of that. And when I hit a rock bottom in multiple kinds of ways, that was one of the things I started to examine was, is this contributing to my unhappiness, to my inability to focus, and to my general feeling of disconnection from other people?
When you say when you hit rock bottom, when did you find out that it was time to step up?
That's a great question. There's been this new diagnosis that many of my friends have received, and I'm not questioning this diagnosis at all, but that is adult women being diagnosed with ADHD, right? And I thought I had this too. I'm a pretty hyper person and run on a fast clock, I've been told. And so I was certain I had this too because I just couldn't produce the work. And granted, I was in a field that is notorious for burnout, the nonprofit sector, right? But even my own personal work, in my master's, I had written a dissertation, post-human geographies, looking at the relationships between humans and non-humans from a vulnerability lens. And that was very, very hard, but I was able to do it. Right? That was 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago, and now I'm having a problem putting a one pager together for a client. Like, what is happening? Right? I don't know. Have you experienced that? I know you talk to lots of women.
No, definitely, because now with all the scrolling, right? It's like every 10 seconds, it's instant. So you're like, okay, I see myself even watching Netflix when the scene drags a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's go, and like it's 30.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I'm sure this isn't news to you, but there's a lot of research coming out. There's a lot of data that show now we are essentially mining for this dopamine when we do that, right? And it does physically change our brains, and it makes it more difficult for us actually to sit and focus, right? Our attention is more fractured. We're used to those quick dopamine hits over and over again, and it is really changing the way that we are able to be present and to focus.
So how do you actually stop this? Because you're talking about digital minimalism. So how do you go to this, and do you even see a difference?
Oh, I love that question, Claude. Thanks. Yes. The answer is absolutely yes. So I'll talk about some of the things that I did and am doing currently, and in the way that it's impacted my life in a positive way. So the first thing is I took all sound notifications and any flashing notifications off my phone. So with the exception of my mom, she was just experiencing some health issues. So she's a breakthrough caller person. But with everyone else, including clients, I have notifications off. So that means that I don't have calls coming through to my phone or texts. And I try to block the time that I'm going to be answering texts, answering calls, and on Instagram, right? I also use lots of other apps. So I'm not a Luddite. That's someone that doesn't want to use technology at all. Like, I love technology. There's so many cool things. I don't think we can deny the benefits that technology has had on our lives. So I have a Whoop Strap, which is like a fitness tracker. It just doesn't have a screen on it. Right? I use the app on my phone. I have lots of cool apps that I use. It's just that I try to block the time that I'm using the apps. Does that always work? No, because something we'll talk about maybe in a minute is that it does take quite a lot of intention. The other things that I do, I am working very hard on setting a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. No screen block. And that is where 7 p.m. hits. I go to bed early, so I will say that. If you go to bed at 12, 7, it's probably going to be, that's a long stretch, right? But I go to bed around 8 to 8:30. So at 7 p.m., all screens off. So phones put away on do not disturb mode, again, with a call through for my mom and stepdad. Absolutely never, ever scrolling in bed. That's like the worst. I think we know that, right? So screens off and Netflix, whatever, all that's off. Then I will say that I get up around 5, and sometimes I want to write in the morning. So if I want to do a deep project, if I want to write, if I want to do something hard, like in the back end of, Kajabi or something, that's a fine time. I can get on my computer and do that, but it's absolutely not a time to be on Instagram, to be blooping around, just kind of scrolling. On the desktop, you can still obviously be on Instagram, right? And then I turn the phone back on at 7.
So I was going to ask because, for example, Kindle, is that considered a book or is it considered a screen?
For me personally, I consider that a screen. And one of my goals is to never own a Kindle. And I feel like I see that I'm a backpacker and a traveler, and I see people with Kindles, and sometimes I'm quite jealous. Like, oh, that looks so light, and you have 900 books on there. I don't know. Yeah, it's an amazing tool. For me personally, I love books. I love physical books, so I won't plan to use one. That could change, maybe. But I heard that Kindle is also different for your eyes than the blue light from screens.
So, Kelsey, knowing that a lot of our listeners are either personal creators or in a corporate environment, so they do use both of the digital element for personal and for professional. Ultimately, our work is digital. Like, we can't avoid it. Yeah. So how do we set those boundaries without that checking out completely?
I'll just note, just to echo your point, we're meeting on this very cool platform, digital platform, obviously. Yeah, and I'm delighted to be here and be connecting like this. And there's so many great things at the digital space. So I just want to be clear about that again. But the issue is, if you have a corporate job, high power job, if you're on call, if you're a doctor, there might be situations where right now you can't set as strong of digital boundaries as you might want to. I totally understand that. The issue is that for most of us, we absolutely could be setting better boundaries, but we use our businesses to justify completely out of control digital use, right? And this is this little personal aside. This started to really, really come to the forefront. I was in a relationship, sort of long distance, and we both had businesses, but he was just not able to stay off of his phone during our very limited time together. And notifications going off all the time, social media notifications. And it got to the point where I'm like, I have a business too. I actually have clients as well. But if you have set yourself up to be constantly always available, that's a trap that's going to be pretty tough to unwind from and get out of, right? And it became a real issue. And I think that was when I was just emerging to understand that this was a value. Like, this is becoming a core value in my life, where I am fully prioritizing in-person relationships, space for my mental health, my brain to have a break from screens, and really wanting to build community off of screens as well as on, right? I don't have any problem connecting people online. That's, that's like, there's so many cool spaces for us to do that, like where we met. But the issue is that the more time that you spend in those spaces, the less time you're going to have for your own brain to come up with really cool ideas, to just have some breaks, to breathe, to process stuff, right? And the less time you have to keep going, or keep these in-person relationships going and nurture the actual physical people in your life.
So I guess the way you'd state it is, it's not don't do it, it's more figure out that balance for yourself to still be able to be both efficient in your job, but also building relationships.
That's a great way to say it. And to be honest, one of the things that I found was, and you've perhaps heard this research too, the more focused time you have and the less time, often the more productive you are. So one of the very easy tricks is to literally put your phone out of sight. There's a study, I think I've got it right here, called the brain drain, that shows that when your phone is in sight of you, even if it's face down, your attention is just more fractured. So that means that we're literally just a bit dumber when our phones are around. And so you can imagine that if you're also having an in-person conversation and your phone's sitting there, or if their phone's sitting there, you're just not able to pay as much attention and you're just less present. So to your point, yes, I think that setting up these boundaries is going to help with productivity, with focus, and with feeling like, we all say we don't have enough time. There's so little time and we're all strapped for time. I will say, when you start to spend more time off of your screens, you're like, wow, I got a lot more time.
So did you see a difference for you about being able to focus more from what you had said earlier?
Absolutely. Yeah, and especially with some of those deeper projects. I call it deep work. There's a book by Cal Newport. It's one of the main thinkers that I follow. So he wrote this book, Digital Minimalism, and he also wrote Deep Work. And that is basically all about that. When you start to, I will say, it is hard, right? Especially at first.
Yeah. My next question was going to be like, how did you start, and what are tips for people to start? Because
it's like being, like we became drug addict on our phone, about our phone.
Yeah, I use the addiction metaphor quite a bit. It can feel a little intense to some people, but it is that same compulsion. And I mentioned earlier, I run these 24-hour screen-free challenges, and if you're not sure if you're addicted to your screens, try to go 24 hours or even like 6 for a lot of people and see what happens, right? And then you will know how integral screens are to your life and how often you are just seeking something to fill that space. We're so unaccustomed to being bored anymore. And I don't know how old you two are, but I recall living just fine before cell phones. And
yes,
yeah, yeah,
and it was
being
actually
able to,
better, it
yeah.
was, you had more connection with people. You could do, like, I feel bad even for the kids nowadays, where everything is being recorded. Like, we all did stupid things being young, but just our little circle knew about it, right? Or it was a hearsay. But now nowadays, you can't escape.
Yeah, I feel the same. I read a book called The Anxious Generation, and I get a lot of questions from parents about what to do about the kids. And I'm not a parent myself, so I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to help adults over here. We got it pretty bad. The Anxious Generation talks about what's happening with the youth. And so if you're a parent, this is a critical reading for anyone that has a young person. And
yeah, I've read it, and I talk about it a lot with my friends that have kids the same age as my daughter. It's very eye-opening because it's impacting us in a very different way than it's even impacting them, because to them, they don't know any different. This is not something that like you have a comparison to, and it's causing a lot more the calls around anxiety and a lot of personal self-doubt that we worked with on our own but didn't have in the same level.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an understatement for sure. Yeah. So to go back to, I suppose, the way to start and just getting some momentum here. I'll just say again that it's going to feel pretty difficult at first, probably, but I want to emphasize that the stakes here are very high, right? This is your actual brain, your actual life that we're talking about. And again, I'm not suggesting that we throw our phones into the river and like smash our computers, go live in the woods, right? I'm saying use the tools as tools. You have a business online, that's amazing. What a privilege. But use that platform, use the social media as tools instead of letting it use you, because of course we know that this stuff is free. There's a reason it's free. You are the product. The metaphor I often use is a hammer. So a hammer can be used to build a beautiful house, and it can be used to like bash someone's hand, right? And so I would never say like throw the hammer away if you're trying to build a house. But the problem is if you start to be obsessed with the hammer, you start to prioritize the hammer over everything else in your life, and it's making you stressy and depressy. Like let's reevaluate what is happening here.
So I can understand. I'm thinking even for myself, right? Which I know if I'm going to try to do the challenge, which, the
Cool.
phone is going to be hard. But where I think it would be very hard as well is like no screen, like Netflix or TV. That is going to be a challenge as well.
Yeah.
Because at the end, you're like, okay, what am I going to do?
But you just, before we started recording, you gave an example of I picked up a book because I didn't want to interrupt people or have
I know,
noise.
but that was
so
in the
you've
night.
got other things you could do.
I know.
And going back, we didn't always have Netflix.
But I had TV.
You had TV, but how many nights where you were like, oh, I don't like any of these shows? So you'd go do something else.
I know. I would have to
No,
go
I mean,
somewhere else because my husband watched TV all the time.
Well, that's a different
I
thing.
come live to you.
There you go. You can come.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It is, it's funny because when I started running these challenges, these are hard. They're challenging. It's a challenge. Someone said, I think I got a lot of people kind of defensive about it. Like, I think that you should make it a one screen at a time challenge. Like, oh,
but then it's not a challenge anymore.
I don't know. That might still. I was gonna say. I'm thinking of myself, and like at night, I'm usually doing work and then also watching something, and then usually doing something for our podcast
and
on the side. So like I have like 4 screens going at once. So yeah, I do.
Wow.
I think, but to your point, doing one is not any better. It's like just get them all. You really need to shut down.
I think that's an amazing level of multitasking, and like, wow, okay,
I could do a lot better things with my brain though than that.
I would have, the more that I do in this space, the more I'm finding, that those, not saying it's not working for you, but those kinds of distractions are so distracting, But I will just go back to the idea of leisure. And one of the concepts for what to do with that void is looking at what kinds of things, I think TV has always been a thing, right? But to your point, it wasn't always like we had literally thousands of options, and so you'd be like, well, I'll watch an hour of this, but I don't like the show after that or whatever. The idea is, are there high quality activities that you could replace the screen time with? So I think I used to do like multimedia collage watercolor stuff in college before smartphones were a thing. And I'm like, I just cannot at night sit around and like collage and like do art stuff. And I'm like, gosh, it's tough to recall that time because instead I just would be watching so many hours of Netflix. But the issue is like for your brain to have that creative output, and creative, I mean creative in lots of different things, projects around your house, connecting with people, doing a volunteer activity, taking a long boring walk, doing art, whatever it is. Can you replace the scrolling in the Netflix just once in a while? I'm not saying every night, with a high quality hobby, learning an instrument, or like I said, doing art or something like that. And it sounds hard. It sounds like it's going to be like, oh, after work, I don't want to do a hard thing like art or like an instrument or whatever. But for your brain and the way that you're going to feel about yourself, this is actually going to be better for for your self-esteem, and for the way that you feel like you're showing up in the world.
I think that your comment, though, that it doesn't have to be every single night. It could just be like a night or two a week, just enough to give your brain some exercise in a different way.
Exactly. Or like, okay, I'm going to do 1 hour of something other than TV stuff while I still have some energy, and then like wind down with Netflix, whatever. But can you just push back a little bit, whether it be like a day of the week or two, or with like time, just limiting that time?
Yeah, it's especially scrolling in bed, right? That is something that can be removed and taking a book instead.
Kelsey, as we know, we're in this midst of this loneliness epidemic, which we feel some of the digital overload is causing an element of that. You have something called How to Build Your Circle, where you do focus on bringing back people together. What is that?
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Thanks for that question. So it's funny because I used to think these were two completely different topics: in-person community and digital boundaries, right? And I was always like, how do I bring the messaging together? And then, and then like one day I realized, oh my God, this is the same message, right? So essentially, and again, I'll say it one more time just to make sure everyone's clear. Digital relationships are important too. And of course, you can meet a lot more people than you can in your local, community.
Yeah.
But again, the issue is that we are longing for connection. I personally believe that the rise of the smartphone, especially, is the number one reason for the loneliness epidemic, really exacerbated by COVID. There's other theories out there too that have compounded this, but I believe that's the number one reason. And the issue is the more connection that we seek online through these light touches like likes and these little comments and things, the less energy we have and desire to go out and build this in-person community. And just to be clear, when I say in-person, in my mind, it'd be neat to like have these big groups of friends that we all do stuff with all the time and like hang out like besties, and that's cool. That's a great goal. But I'm talking about the way that we evolved as a species, right? With having an actual village around us with lots of different ages, lots of different types of people. Obviously, we know that social media is creating these echo chambers, right? Where we're just kind of hearing the same stuff from people, becoming less tolerant of each other. And so I'm talking about, can we reestablish chatting up people in the grocery store and knowing who your neighbors are, right? And getting to know people that are a little bit different. So yeah, I have this course called How to Build Your Circle, and that is especially focused on, well, there's an entire module on digital boundaries, which will not come as a surprise. And then I talk about how to take these relationships to the next level. So from an acquaintance that you maybe like, if you play pickleball, you see a pickleball 3 times a week, to like, how do you start to build something that you'd consider a friendship, right? So it's really focused on that.
It's almost like going back to basic that we lost since we had our phone, like, or screen, because now you can even see people, the way they talk to each other through the screen is like you would never say that in face to face in real person. So it's going back to what is actually being nice, human, considerate, that I feel like with screen, all that a lot of times for some people, it goes out the door and there are no filters.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So within that too, I think the other cool thing about it is it kind of gets you to remind yourself that these people are people. They're human. So everybody has ways to connect, and it doesn't have to be a connection on the same things or you are the same person, which is kind of similar to the work bestie ethos, right? Like we see it all the time where there's work besties with huge age gaps, work besties of very different, diverse backgrounds,
different lives,
different experiences, but there's always something that bonds them. So you made a comment about how you like help people figure out ways to meet in real life. Do you have any quick tips or tricks that we could share with the Work Bestie community on that?
Yeah, sure, Jess. Well, I think you make a great point about the way that people come together, and for a lot of people, they don't maybe have these opportunities because of, remote workplaces. And again, just the stuff we've been talking about this entire episode now, right? But I guess, unsurprisingly, my number one tip would be to put your phone away in public, to really focus on being present, which is probably going to feel super boring at first because we're so used to like, oh, we're waiting in line. This is a great time to check email. Like, why not? And the reason is, again, we've just sort of lost the ability to just kind of chit chat with each other, right? And so trying to strengthen that muscle again of being out in the world. And I will acknowledge for introverts, this is tougher, like absolutely, no doubt. But trying to strengthen that muscle of chatting with people, being interested in people, right? I mean, I go through some, like, honestly, a little bit painstakingly the steps you would take to pull someone into your circle. And it's not rocket science. It's like old PR stuff that you can use, right? Which is basically just like, ask people questions, be interested in their lives. Can you find one thing that you can relate to in what they're sharing, even if you're very different? And that's one of my favorite tricks for making buddies is like, we could be really different. And usually there's something I can find about them that I really like. Like, this guy in his 60s, very different political views from me. Okay. This guy really likes his cat. I love that he loves his cat. That is great. Like, I like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so smart. Because I think I went back to before, like, you can always find something in someone good, right?
And in that case, you don't have the algorithm that is going to serve you.
You are the algorithm.
No, but it's true, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, with your phone, or whatever, you have the algorithm that is going to serve you things that you believe that you always want to see. But you don't have an algorithm when you speak with someone that is totally different, but you learn from each other and you can have connections.
Claude, I think that's actually a really important point, that you're making, is that going back to the young people, that's one of the issues, is that they're losing that practice of having to navigate these relationships in real time. And I mean, embodied relationships, right? Where you're facing a person, and yeah, they might be really different from you. You might have like a little bit of disagreement. It's a little tense. It's not so easy. And I think we all, not just the young people, but we all are sort of losing the ability to navigate that. And that's how we evolved as a species, right?
No, totally.
You made a comment about how when you do take the step to put your phone down, it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but growth hides in the discomfort. So how has leaning into discomfort for you really shaped your work and what you're seeing in others?
Gosh, Jess, yeah, that's a great question. And I think one that actually informs a lot more of my life than just the digital space, digital boundaries. Let's say we're working on our mental health, just being able to manage our emotions better. Sitting with discomfort is so important. And so I'm actually working on this in multiple spheres. So, for example, just being outdoors, backpacking, it's so uncomfortable. It's like just really sucks sometimes. You're cold, hot, dirty. Oh, you pee in the woods, gross. And it's like, okay, can I sit with this discomfort and be okay with it? Like, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to get home fine. I'll take a shower when I get there. It's okay. When you're thinking about strengthening your mental health, like, are there things that are tough, triggers, not to go off on this tangent, but discomfort is really important to be able to sit with in general, right? And setting up some boundaries in your life, in your digital space, is really no different, right? We go back to the addiction conversation. If you're minimizing your drinking, if you're working on overeating, if you're got a little shoppy habit, like online, it's any of these things are things that you're going to have to sit with some discomfort around in order to get a handle on. I don't think we'd ever make the argument, if you're an alcoholic, that like, well, it's uncomfortable to stop drinking. So, I mean,
keep going.
It's true.
You bring up a good point. I think that's one of the things we think about with whether it's drugs, alcohol, all these things that are bad. Being on all of your digital elements is just as bad for your health as well. So it is just as severe and interesting to see that the discomfort is probably just as painful, but it's so important to figure out that balance for your personal health.
Yeah, and it's a nuanced point, I think, because of course we utilize technology. There's a lot of great things about it. And so it's not so clean cut to say it's not like heroin. It's probably just like 100% bad all the time, no matter what, right? But there's so many great things to be found. And because of that, I think it's easy to justify the use across the board. So it's the mindset is like, well, there's some great things about this. So that means that all of it is great. And, out of control use is fine because look at the benefits. And the research shows that once you start to restrict down your digital use, you're probably going to reap about the same level of benefit from it while also being able to do so much more in your life.
Yeah. So your health will get better and you're more productive. So you'll even feel better about yourself.
So, Kelsey, how do we reconnect to real life without disconnecting from the world? So you gave us so many great tools. Can you give us a little recap of all those tools that our community can actually do?
Absolutely, yes. The number one tip here is that you can still do, the things that you need to do online. You can still scroll your feed. I would point out you can be ruthless with curating your feed so that you are getting more good stuff, less crappy stuff, right, in your feeds. But the point is you can still do all of this stuff, but having some parameters around it, setting some boundaries for yourself, and then actually following them. That's the tough part, right? It's like building any other habit. So classic habit building skill here. Following those boundaries is going to benefit you in both your productivity, your focus, and your digital space, as well as in the rest of your life. And there is a lot of rest of your life to address.
That's awesome. That was, I think, exactly what we needed to hear and what our work bestie community needed to hear.
And, that's the reminder we all need: less noise, more presence. And it's not just unplugging forever. It's about remembering where the real connection lives and in conversation, community, and really showing up for everybody.
Love that.
Yeah.
So to learn more about Kelsey or to be a part of one of her communities, visit kelseylgreen.com because sometimes you can find out the best connections you can make or the ones right in front of you.
And if this episode made you rethink how you connect, send it to your work bestie and maybe talk about it face to face.
That's right. Face to face.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. So fun to be on today.
Remember, whether you're swapping snacks in the break room, rescuing each other from endless meetings, or just sending that perfectly timed meme, having a work bestie is like having your own personal hype squad.
So keep lifting each other up, laughing through the chaos, and of course, thriving. Until next time, stay positive, stay productive, and don't forget to keep supporting each other.